So the thing I wanted to do, this is called the audience. This is the audience overview. It's under audience reports. This is where you see basically like you're quantifying how many people have come to your website during this particular date range. And then these two numbers right here are that, but then these numbers, page views, pages per session, session duration, and bounce rate are what I call engagement statistics. So it's how well is your website doing at keeping the traffic engaged that it took in. My philosophy is that these numbers are more important than these two numbers. If we can lower an 86% bounce rate, does anyone know basically what an 86% bounce rate means? 14% of these almost 2,000 people actually counted as a web visitor. So you just times this number by 0.14. That's actually how many people that this website actually got during that time period. So if you can lower this number, it's far more cost effective to do things to lower that number than it is to go out and get more of these people.
What's a good bounce rate?
Slightly close to great would be lower than 40%, and a great bounce rate would be like 20 or lower. So in an audience report, something that you could do that happens all the time, again, I want to try to make this about how is this beneficial for business, like just business professionals, people who aren't even really in the digital part of this. So if you're trying to help out your teammates in a meeting or something like that and provide value, this is an example that happens all the time. So if you pick your date range, this one just happens to be like year to date, 2017, real web data, huge traffic drop off in the middle of Q3. So we drill down on that later into the acquisition reports, which I'll show you, and you can see why that happens. But number one is you can use this audience report as an indicator to see things like, okay, well, what happened from a business standpoint that was probably negative that caused this traffic increase, this traffic decrease. And then on the flip side, like this spike right here, often would indicate a business function potentially outside of digital that brought in more users than the site was used to. And then you can drill down even further. Well, what did we do on that day that probably did really well? Another thing in an audience report, just when you go look at what type of device category users are viewing your website on, you start to see potentially some really interesting and shocking data. Like in this particular case, 85% of this website's users year to date are on a phone. 85%. So like we all read a lot of headlines, we all hear a lot of things, and we hear like, well, everyone's on a mobile device. Well, a lot of times I'm looking at the data, or someone from our team's looking at the data in Google Analytics, and we see 25% on a mobile device, 27% on a mobile device, maybe 33 is high, okay, 85. So it's really about just go find out. Like instead of guessing how many people are viewing your, potentially going to view you on a mobile device, it's all right here to go check out. So then, of course, we prioritize the mobile side of their web, and it's justified. Like almost all of the effort should be around what does that site look like on a mobile device, not because we think people are moving to mobile, but because we have data showing that. Another example where this can be used from a business perspective in addition to just digital is, let's say you're looking at a marketing strategy around where to target people, or even opening up a new location, whether it be opening up a new location, and I'll use you guys, right? Opening up a team in a new market. So on the pro fast pitch softball web data side of things, you could go, I did city, but you could go, you could go sit the city route, or you can do kind of a map view of the US and visualize it that way and see what markets have the most interest. So for franchises or pro sports leagues, which is really cool for me to talk about, you can look at where your interest is coming in. And then of course, like cross-reference that with the bounce rate. So like Mount Juliet, for this particular website, 95% of the traffic's bouncing. It has a higher number overall than Clarksville, but Clarksville has a lower bounce rate. So then when you start to take those factors into account, and you have Clarksville appears to be spending a little bit more time on the site as well. So just kind of drilling down into that. So our practical exercise is a super simple one. I think it's even easier than setting up an IP filter, is enabling demographics and interest reports. So my experience about 2 years ago was that no website had these enabled. And I've been pleasantly surprised to see over the last couple of years, because I don't know why Google Analytics doesn't just by default enable this, but they make you actually go in. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it up. So always remember, if you're looking at Google Analytics or kind of talking to people about looking at their data, to try and help them remember to get this done. Otherwise, they won't have all the data that I'm about to show you guys. So that is.
How do you do that? How do you enable it?
You're gonna go to. I brought up a website that didn't have it enabled. Okay, so this particular website did not have it enabled. So I'm just gonna back out of this particular one so you can see it kind of from the start. So this is the view. When we go in, we're gonna wanna go into audience. And everything I've shown you up until this point has been under audience. These have all been audience reports. So the mobile, demographics and interests, the audience overview with the traffic and all that, that's all under audience, so it's all under here. When you click audience, all this will drop down. So you go to demographics and then overview. And then normally you would see data, but if it's not enabled, you see enable. And then basically all you have to do is click enable.
Okay.
And then it'll tell you within basically 24 hours from now, you'll start to have data. This data comes from social media. So anytime a web user, essentially everyone's logged into all their social media accounts all the time, and their browser cookies remember that. So whether they're in Chrome or Safari or Internet Explorer, they're typically logged in all the time because that way they don't have to log in every time, unless they're on a shared computer or a shared device. So Google Analytics tracking code on a website will just take Kate Hickey's Facebook profile information, pull it into data-driven design web analytics when you visit datadriven.design, and then it won't show up as this is Kate Hickey, but it'll just aggregate that data in. So the demographics, now they're enabled, and then if we were to go into like this website who's had it enabled for quite some time, we'll see the gender breakdown. So this one happens to be interesting, 81% female web users. And you'll see that it's 49% of their total sessions. So what that means is basically that 49% of their total sessions have passed in this date range of, it's actually only like the last week. So if I expanded that out year to date, the number would go up to probably 60-some% of total sessions, which gives you more of a sample size. But it's basically enough to say, all right, this represents data that we've aggregated from all these social media profiles that have visited your website. So this sample size of your audience gives us enough to say that your web users are 81% female. Your largest age range is the 25 to 34 demographic. They are interested in, the people most likely to purchase from you, to make a purchase from you, are interested in these things: home and garden, home decor, apparel and accessories, women's apparel, etc. So this spirals very quickly into, now this is data that can be used for like a digital marketing strategy.
Yeah, mine is.
The people most likely to purchase products from me or services from me are interested in these things. They're coming from social media data. If we go do a Google display ad campaign or a social media campaign of any kind, these are the people that are lowest in our funnel that we should target first. So that's how to enable demographics and interest reports, and a little bit of kind of how to read and interpret and use them. Any questions on that, or anything you guys want to talk about before we go to acquisition reports? Kind of goes into, it segues nicely into what we're already talking about, so. All right. So now we see, if we want to drive more, kind of like twofold, we all want to drive more traffic to our website, but we also want to know what's effective and what's not effective at helping us reach our goal. So let's just take Innovate Medical as just an example, because you have some lead generation, but do you have any e-commerce? You don't have any e-commerce on the site functionality. So that's why I like it as an example, because like for you guys, in my mind, you're gonna have either it's a lead or there's no lead. But then there's this whole middle ground that you don't really know what's happening. And so when we talk about goals, I'll kind of like bring that example through, because we can set up goals that basically anyone, I'll show you guys how to do this in the last exercise, is you can set up a goal where you just say like, this is a success, I want to count this as a thing if a user comes to my website and within that same session views like these 3 pages or more than 2 pages or spends more than the average amount of time on my website. Things like that will then indicate that that's a quality web user. So now you have this thing conceptually that is in between a conversion and just web traffic that's called a quality web user. So you can track that, and then you can see in your acquisition reports, which you'll go to under acquisition and then all traffic, and then channels, you'll see this view where you can see at a high level paid search, which includes everything where you would pay for a click, so Google, Bing, all of those networks. Organic search, which is your SEO on Google and Bing. Direct, which is people directly typing in your web URL. Referral, which is any website that's linking to you, any web link, even a link from an email. Email, which is email marketing. So that would be like your Emma or your MailChimp or Constant Contact data. Social, which aggregates together all of your social media, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Display, which is its own category outside of paid search, which would include any Google display campaigns.
What's referral?
Referral is going to be any link, any hyperlink to your website. So it'll include social media actually on a few different views. In this view, it's pulled out separately from social media. It's going to be anything like a partnership. Like let's say, Paul writes for Forbes, right? So like the Forbes link to New Harlan Group is going to show up under referral. And it's going to say 211 session, or 200 out of the 211 sessions came from Forbes, which would be amazing. And then 6 people transacted, so that, this is where I was going, Megan. So like now over here under your conversion side, it starts to make even more sense to use this as a tool, because you've got the ability to see, this happens to be an e-commerce site, but this drop-down menu could be any of your, they give you 20 goals on each view. So we could set up, here's an example. The average user spends 2 minutes on this site. So 4 minutes would be obviously double the average user, which would be an extremely qualified web user. So we can set up a goal that would show up over here, and the goal can be spent 4 minutes or more on the site. And now all of a sudden that is a conversion that we can see. All right, let's just pretend that that's what this says. So 50 people from our paid search campaigns spent 4 minutes on the site. That would be an indicator, even if there's only like 1 lead, it would be actually an indicator that in that time frame, it's actually working. It's bringing in people who, depending on your sales cycle, you got to think through, like, would they fill out the form in the first week anyway? Or would they come to the site, check it out, come back, talk to people, whatever. I'll show you some other cool stuff around that. But I just want to stop there and say, this is the basic level acquisition report where you can drill down, think of things from 2 different ways. One, what data is here that could inform me where there's opportunity to maybe go get more web traffic? And then two, what do I already know about that we're doing and how well is it